Jimmy Page's Black Beauty, lost for 45 years. In 1970, Jimmy Page lost one of the most important guitars of his life. It was black, it had 3 pickups, it had gold hardware, and it had already helped shape the sound of an entire era. This was not simply another stage guitar, it was the instrument Jimmy Page had played during his earliest studio work. The guitar he used before Led Zeppelin became Led Zeppelin. The guitar he trusted when he needed something unusual, powerful, and unmistakably his. Then, after a Led Zeppelin show in Minneapolis, it disappeared. For 45 years, nobody could bring it home. This is the story of Jimmy Page's Black Beauty. Long before he became the guitarist of Led Zeppelin, Jimmy Page was one of the busiest session musicians in Britain. He played on countless recordings in the 1960s. Pop singles, film sessions, studio dates, arrangements that demanded speed, precision, and imagination. Page needed guitars that could do more than one thing. And one of the guitars that became central to his life was a black Gibson Les Paul Custom from 1960. It became known as the Black Beauty. At first glance, it looked elegant, glossy black finish, gold hardware, cream binding. But this guitar was not a museum piece. It was heavily used, modified, personalized. It had 3 humbucker pickups, a Bigsby vibrato unit, and unusual switching options that made it more flexible than a standard Les Paul. Page did not treat it as a collectible. He treated it as a tool. A strange, beautiful, extremely powerful tool. During Page's years as a session guitarist, the Black Beauty was one of his main electric guitars. It was part of the sound behind an enormous range of recordings. Before Led Zeppelin had even formed, Page was already building the vocabulary that would later make him legendary. Then came the Yardbirds, and then came Led Zeppelin. By 1968, Jimmy Page was no longer just a session player. He was building a band that would become one of the largest and most influential rock groups in history. Led Zeppelin's sound was heavier, darker, and more theatrical than almost anything around them. And Page's Black Beauty remained part of his arsenal. It appeared in the early Zeppelin era, especially on material that needed a different voice from his famous sunburst Les Pauls. The guitar had character. It could sound thick and aggressive, but it could also sound strangely elastic, almost orchestral, thanks to the Bigsby and the customized electronics. For Page, it was irreplaceable. In April 1970, Led Zeppelin played at the Met Center near Minneapolis. The band was already becoming enormous in the United States. Their concerts were loud, chaotic, and intense. At the end of the show, Jimmy Page used the Black Beauty for a whole lot of love. It would be one of the last times he played it. After the concert, while the band was traveling onward, the guitar was stolen at Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport. The exact details of the theft have been repeated in different ways over the years, but the central fact is clear. Page had the guitar in Minneapolis. Then he did not. The Black Beauty disappeared into the American Midwest. For a musician, losing a favorite guitar is never only about money. A guitar absorbs years of decisions. The place where your hand rests, the way the neck feels, the pickup setting you use without thinking, the tiny marks and modifications that make one instrument feel different from every other instrument in the world. And this guitar had been with Jimmy Page through the years before fame. It was part of his musical memory. The loss was personal. Page and his team tried to get it back. There were reports, there were reward offers, there were hopes that the guitar would surface quickly, but it did not. Months became years, years became decades, and somewhere in Minnesota, the Black Beauty was moving through a hidden world of used instruments, private owners, and missed clues. The guitar did not vanish into a vault. Instead, according to later accounts, it spent years in the Twin Cities area. At some point, it made its way to a vintage guitar shop in St. Paul. A person connected with the shop had heard that the guitar might be Jimmy Page's missing Black Beauty. But there was a problem. The guitar no longer looked exactly like it had in 1970. Some of Page's identifying modifications appeared to be gone. The unique drill holes and altered parts that might have made identification easy were no longer obvious. So the guitar was not immediately recognized. It remained in private hands, played, stored, forgotten, all while one of rock's most famous lost instruments sat only a few miles from the place where it had disappeared. Then, in 2015, the story changed. The guitar needed maintenance. During closer inspection, hidden evidence began to appear. Covered drill holes, unusual modifications, details that matched the long-lost Black Beauty. What had once looked like an ordinary old Les Paul Custom was suddenly becoming something else. A missing piece of rock history. The guitar was examined more carefully. The physical evidence lined up. The history lined up, and the realization became unavoidable. This was Jimmy Page's Black Beauty. The guitar that had disappeared in 1970 had survived. Not in a museum, not in a billionaire's vault, not on some impossible overseas adventure. It had spent decades living quietly in the same region where it had been stolen. The next question was simple. How do you return a guitar like that to Jimmy Page? The people involved arranged for the Black Beauty to be reunited with him. In 2015, after 45 years, the guitar came back. Imagine that moment. To hold an instrument you believed was gone forever. To see the scratches, the hardware, the familiar shape, the physical proof of a part of your own past. For Page, it was not just the return of a valuable guitar. It was the return of a lost chapter. The story did not end in private. In 2019, the recovered Black Beauty was displayed at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York as part of the exhibition Play It Loud, Instruments of Rock and Roll. The guitar had moved from airport theft to decades of uncertainty to one of the world's great museums. But the mystery did not disappear completely. Who exactly stole it? How did it move through so many hands without being properly recognized? How close did it come to being altered beyond recognition? And how many other famous guitars are still sitting somewhere, unnamed and unidentified? The Black Beauty proves that lost guitars can come back. Sometimes the evidence is hidden under paint, hardware, or years of bad assumptions. Sometimes the answer is not in a glamorous private collection. Sometimes it is in a small shop, in a forgotten case, entrepreneurs waiting for someone to look closely enough. Jimmy Page thought this guitar was gone forever. He was wrong, and that may be the most important part of the story. Because somewhere, right now, another lost instrument may still be waiting to be recognized.